everybody, welcome back. Turnpike Fantasy Football. The 2013 season is upon us, and we're ready to go. Of course, I'm League Commissioner Kevin McBool, and I'm also your defending league champion. I've been waiting a long time to say that, and I appreciate you all stopping by to check out the Week 1 preview show. It seems like it's been about a month and a half since our draft here at Downingtown at our league headquarters. It was funny. We draft real early, I know that, and it's kind of a risk to take some players and maybe who's going to be available, who's not, if there are going to be a lot of injuries in the preseason. We really weren't hurt that badly by the injury bug. Yeah, we lost a couple guys that were drafted, but not too many, and only a couple of us made the mistake of drafting injured players, Jeremy Macklin. So, basically what I want to do is just kind of welcome you all on board. You guys, this is the first year in the history of Turnpike to Turnpike. Again, this is our 6th season where we have the exact same 12 players that we had last year, first time, so congratulations to everybody. I think it's great that we all actually made the draft this year. That was another big step that hasn't happened in the past, where we are all now here together to make our own selections, so nobody's excuses, nobody can blame anybody, nobody can blame their father for drafting the wrong quarterback. Some things I want to just kind of give you a clue about what's going to happen this year, aside from my new studio that I have here, is we're going to do more of the same stuff. I still want to do Meet the Managers. I still want to do some interactive stuff on the site where we do it with the poll and everything. I think that there are some really good teams in this league. I think there's some mediocrity in here, but like usual, Turnpike to Turnpike always has really competitive games, always really competitive waiver wire pickups. I've already seen that. I've seen people working the waiver wire. Already, John Moore is on the waiver wire champion. The last I checked, he has 7 waiver wire moves. I think he just picked up Jonathan Dwyer for the 3rd time. That was a joke. I see Matt Dreyfus is making some waiver claims, but more importantly, he's been vocal. He was funny at the draft. Pretty exciting. I'm excited about this season with Matt coming on board with this fiery personality. I love it. Where has that been? I want to see more of it. And then, of course, we have, teams like, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. What I'm going to do instead is, what I decided to do is instead of interviewing somebody for Meet the Manager this year, right out of the gate, I did want to talk to somebody, but I wanted to talk to him a little bit more about the state of the league and a little bit more about what he thought of the draft and what he thinks of the upcoming Turnpike to Turnpike season. I myself, I don't like to rate people's teams too much because I'm in the league and I don't want to really offend anybody too much by what I think of them, what I think about what they take in certain areas, or if somebody takes a defense in the 8th round or something like that. What I do want to do is show you an interview I did a little while ago with Bob Crane, and he can fill us in on his expert fantasy football opinion and wisdom and what he thinks of the upcoming Turnpike to Turnpike 2013 fantasy football season. This is what happened. So joining me on the phone right now is everybody's good friend and oddly enough, the person that most people seem to want to beat this year at Turnpike to Turnpike, Bob Crane. Bob, why do you think everybody wants to beat you more than me or Anthony?
I don't know. I just think it's just that fact that I'm way too critical at the draft. Especially of the guy sitting next to me, Mr. Sheehan.
Now, you're critical at the draft, but through the rest of the season, you'll bop in a little bit on the message boards, but you're harmless. You really think it's just because of the way that you critique people at the draft that people want to beat you? You think it's just fresh in their memories when they answered that poll question?
Oh, I think absolutely it is. I stand out as the most unique individual at this draft.
That is saying a fact. You are, if nothing else, Bob, you are a unique individual. So, thanks for admitting that. That actually might be something that appears on the screen from time to time.
Yes, that and my photo of E.T.
Well, it won't be a Turnpike to Turnpike season if E.T. doesn't make an appearance. But listen, a couple things. I wanted to bring you on board today, not so much as Meet the Manager to discuss your team per se or any particular matchup that you may have. This is the start of season. Season starts in 2 nights. This is the first video. You haven't seen the graphics that I did. I've spent a lot of time building out some really cool sets, some really new lighting and everything, and I'm hoping that this is going to be the best season yet. I always try to make it the best season. So what I wanted you here for was I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you were critical about the draft. I want to get some brief, quick thoughts about what you think of the draft, and then after that, I'd like to go over and maybe see who you think the final 4 teams are going to be, who eventually the winner is going to be, and more importantly, I want to know who you think had the worst, who will be in last place. So, first off, what were your overall first impressions of the draft?
Well, first of all, as you know, my biggest criticism of the draft has always been how early it is. And I think there's a league member named Jeff Goldenbaum who seems to push the envelope with that, with all his August vacation.
Yeah, that's true. And I addressed that a couple minutes ago in my opening monologue, saying that I really, as early as it was, we really didn't have too many really bad injuries, luckily enough. No major star went down for the entire season. A couple of people got nicked up a little bit, and yeah, somebody might have lost a backup running back here and there, but overall, we pretty much stayed through it. Unless you were somebody silly enough to go ahead and draft somebody like, I don't know, Jeremy Maclin.
Sure. But there's a couple other players out there, too, that are sort of disabled now that have not been moved along.
Right. So go ahead, give me your thoughts on the actual draft. Not so much the time, but what you think. What was your overall thought? Did you think it went pretty much good? I mean, to be honest with you, I think our league is always very strong. I think everybody did a very solid job. There are some questionable picks. Some people reach for things at certain times. Let's get to it. What do you think of Anthony Parisi's draft?
Oh, my gosh. Where do I begin? Well, first of all, was he really prepared for this draft, and was he really looking at the real-time statistics of these players? In other words, not even statistics. Was he just keeping up? Because if you really look at his team, it's not terrible.
Nope.
I've seen worse.
Yep.
But there is really no bench whatsoever that scares you. And, of course, he drafted the dreaded Jeremy Maclin, and then, top it off, Dustin Keller went down with an injury, and Heath Miller, we're not sure if he's going to play the first few games of the season. So I think it was a poor draft on his part. He's really banking on a lot of things to happen, and he's not really looking at the waiver wire at all to improve his team.
Excellent point with the waiver wire. First part of that, I'll address 2 parts, and I'll play devil's advocate. Hello, I'm the devil's advocate. No. I think what, in Anthony's defense, he's been very busy lately with his job. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, this is only his 2nd year in fantasy football, period. Last year, I kind of gave him some hand-holding, kind of gave him the draft strategy, things like that. Look, I admit that. Everybody knows that I've done that. Whether he wants to admit it to the extent that I helped him is one thing, which is one of the reasons why I backed the hell off this year and didn't add anything, because there was no mention of me from last year. So I figured, let him go by himself. Now, I have told him since then, go get somebody so-and-so off waivers instead of Jeremy Maclin, and he hasn't. Jeremy Macklin's still on his roster. As last I checked, he might even still be in his starting lineup. He also drafted 3 tight ends. That was what really made me scratch my head. How do you draft 3 tight ends?
Yeah, how about 2 defenses?
I got a question for you. How early should somebody draft a defense?
Well, in all honesty, if you feel like you have a good team, and you're in say a 14 or 16 round draft, why not say somewhere north of double digits, 11?
Yep. Okay. That's just checking.
But that's if you want the top defense, and you really feel like that's going to contribute to your ball club.
You think 8th round's too high for defense?
Yeah, my strategy is for kicker and defense is to wait to either the last 2 to 3 rounds. I just don't see the value of it, and reality-wise, you're going to wind up cutting your kicker, and you're going to wind up cutting your defense, most likely, in order to get through the bye week.
Yep, I got you. All right, so do this. Do me a favor. Give me your top 4 Turnpike to Turnpike 2013 teams.
Well, reluctantly, I'm going to give yourself a top spot. And not reluctantly because I don't think you deserve it. It's just because you won last year. Everybody would like to see, the champion be replaced with somebody else.
Yeah, I'm a marked man, I know that, but I'm always a marked man, so I'm used to it.
So really, when I looked at your team just from a top to bottom, I thought your draft was pretty good, considering we were drafting a month and a half early before the season. And, once again, you've proven to be a deep playoff team the past few years.
Thank you.
So I think you're definitely one of those teams. The other team that I liked a lot was another Long team by the owner of a Kenny Long.
Interesting.
And that was the team that drafted Adrian Peterson.
Yep.
Well, the Gladiators.
Yep.
I think when you have Adrian Peterson and arguably the best fantasy quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, on your roster, you're doing pretty good. Plus, he grabbed some pretty good wide receivers.
Brandon Marshall.
And he got some decent players on that team.
Yep.
Although I'm not super fond of his second and third running backs, he still has a very strong team. I think he's well positioned.
Okay.
The other team was his father, the Asgardian Thunder Gods. I thought he did very well too. He drafted very well, got a lot of starting running backs, and wide receiver wise did pretty well for himself as well. Julio Jones is a beast.
Yes.
And the last team that I liked was the Eastfall Jedi, which I believe is owned by Mr. Bond.
Yes, that's right.
And I think when you look at the running backs that he was able to pick up and the receivers, along with Matt Ryan, I think he's going to be very difficult to beat this year.
I could see that. I like those four. I'm not so sure I would put both Longs in those top four. I do agree with you on those. I'll take myself out of the running out of the top four because I'm not going to grade my own team, obviously. But I'll tell you this, I'll say it again. I know it sounds like the curse of death, but I really like John Moore's team. This is a guy who has not made the playoffs since we started this league. But the guy this year impressed me, and I'm not just saying that. I mean, he waited on a quarterback for a while, which is very much unlike him. He went running back heavy. LaShawn McCoy, Alfred Morris, both great starting running backs. Kaepernick is a wild card. If Kaepernick is what everybody thinks he could be, this team could be great. I think that this is a team that could really... I will say that John Moore definitely makes the playoffs this year, and I think that he has a chance to win it all.
You really gave him the kiss of death.
I didn't. It's not intentional. It's not intentional. It's not intentional. But
well, he does have a good team compared to other years that I've seen out of the draft, and he's hitting the waiver wire really hard. He's already has 5 transactions plus already.
Yep. Yeah.
So he's trying to improve, which is a good sign. And but honestly, he's also carrying 2 defenses.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's early, but you know what? John tries. He's tried every year. The guy's been snake bit. He's had some bad luck with injuries. I remember he drafted Brady first round the first year. Boom, he went out. I think he's got a history of that. So you never know. But I think that this is a very solid squad, Bob.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, this is his best chance. Let's not ruin it for him, though.
All right. Now, is the worst team the obvious choice?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously Woodbury ranks as the worst team coming into the league, but there are some other teams that are notable.
Yeah, who else?
Well, and this might cause some pain, but I did not like that Fishtown off in the corner team.
Really?
And here's why. Look at his starting running back, Chris Johnson.
Yep.
How many times has that guy disappointed in fantasy football?
Yeah, I know, but they revamped that offensive line. They spent some high draft picks on there. I hear you, but I'll drink that Kool-Aid. I'll go with that. He's got great wide receivers, though, with A.J. Green and Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz is a fantasy beast. He beats me all the time.
And I'm sure Torrey Smith isn't a slouch either. His tight end is Gresham, which I don't even know if he's the starter. But, what I would say is that if you look at his running backs, he also has Andre Brown.
Yep.
And that's in his starting lineup. And his backup running back is Mike LaSure.
Yeah. I see your points.
I'm kind of questioning that team.
I see your points. All right, you know what? I want to go ahead before you leave because everybody is going to be yelling at me, and we'll be hearing a bunch of stuff on this if I don't go ahead and look at your roster. How's that? That sound fair?
That's fair.
All right. I want to congratulate you on David Wilson. I think that it was sketchy when you drafted him, but the injury to Andre Brown proved that this guy is going to be a goal line back, and the guy's explosive. I think that with Andre Brown going down, you got a steal. Ryan Matthews, somebody who I hate saying his name because of how he hurt me last year. I drafted him in the first round last year and still won the league because of a guy named Adrian Peterson and Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. But Ryan Matthews killed me. I think you're going to get something out of him this year. He looks fantastic in camp. Norv Turner's out of there, and he's got a new coach who believes in him. You've got the stud fantasy running wide receiver in Calvin Johnson. You paired him up with Mike Wallace. Jermichael Finley, you never know. He's one of those guys. I've had him for a couple years. He really hurts you sometimes, but he is playing for a contract this year. And then you have who I think is the best quarterback in football right now in Drew Brees. I think he's going to have a monster year. So I'm going to put you in my top 4 as well. So I'm not so sure about both longs that you said. I could take one or the other. I could definitely put you in the top 4. I definitely like John Moore there as well. But I want to congratulate you on a good team, dude. I think you did well.
Well, I mean, again, when you're 6 weeks, before the season, there's a lot of picks that you're looking at, and you're not sure which way it's going to pan out. So, I mean, I really gambled on the Wilson pick. There's no doubt about that.
Yep, and it paid off, man.
I think.
Well, that was Bob. Always enlightening, always encouraging to hear when he thinks your team is solid. But even better when he thinks your team is crap, because obviously you're about to win a championship. So congratulations to all of you that he called out. So in the meantime, let's take a look at another exciting area of my studio. So as you can see, I took all my winnings from last year and I built a new studio in my basement. It's pretty massive now. It's a new season for Turnpike to Turnpike, new look. So now I've got all this cool stuff. I've got great lighting, I've got a great camera, and I've got awesome sound. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not sure that it's all going to sound perfect and look perfect this first week, because it's really the first time I'm putting it all together. I've been doing little tests here and there, but this is the first time I'm getting everything together. So bear with me for this week. If there's something off this week, I will make it better next week, I promise. So when I come over here, it's going to be one thing. It's going to be time to start looking ahead to the coming week's matchups. And the reason I want to do it like this is because I want to show some excitement and some passion for it. And what better way to do it than bring up things like this. My Warriors of Babylon taking on Greg Long's Get Work Done is the first match we've got. So right out of the gate, I get Greg Long. I get to take on Peyton Manning. I get to take on Arian Foster, and I get to take on Wes Welker. Very solid team he drafted here. I think that as we said before, I feel pretty good about my team. I like Romo's going to be going. We got Trent Richardson, and I'll have Larry Fitz going. Should be a close game. Let's see who's going to get off out of the gates with a win here. Last year, remember, I know I say it all the time, no member of the long contingent made it to the playoffs. Let's see if that trend continues this year. Speaking of the long contingent, Deputy Commissioner Chris Long's Asgardian Thunder Gods is taking on Anthony Parisi's Woodbury Wankers. Now, I know we spoke about it a little bit before. Yes, Anthony has Tom Brady. Yes, Chris has Andrew Luck. Look, Anthony has Reggie Bush and Matt Forte. No, this isn't a PPR. He might have reached for some of those running backs. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see as the season plays out and see how everything goes in terms of wins and losses for Anthony. But this is going to be a pretty close match. Chris has Andrew Luck and he has Jamal Charles, but he also has Lamar Miller, who is a questionable running back at this point. He is the starting running back in Miami. He also has Darrell Richardson going, who is a questionable running back, but he is the starting back in St. Louis. We will see how well Chris did. He also has Julio Jones and Danny Amendola, where Anthony also has Hakeem Nicks and Sidney Rice, as well as Ahmad Bradshaw. All right, and in the next match, we've got Brian Sheehan's A Gram Equals a Pound taking on Jeff Zeminski's Paper Tigers. Now, Brian went very high on Jimmy Graham here. We'll see how he does. He was the number 1 tight end. He feels so good about it. He named his whole team around this. But he also has Robert Griffin III playing on that leg. Now, here's the thing about Robert Griffin III. I like him. He was great last year. But remember, he did get hurt. He's coming back from a torn ACL, right? He is going to be going. Here's the question. Does Mike Shanahan play him like Robert Griffin III, or does he handle him with kid gloves? I think in the beginning of the season, he's going to go a little easy with him. I think he's going to keep him close to the vest, not really run him like crazy. I think if you're going to play Brian Sheehan and you're going to play 1 gram equals a pound, you want to play him early in the season when Robert Griffin III still isn't so sure of himself. Jeff, on the other hand, he has invested heavily in Matt Stafford. He believes in Matt Stafford. He thinks Matt's going to throw a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. He also went very high, first pick in the draft. His first pick in the draft was C.J. Spiller, passing on Shady McCoy, a couple other guys. He thinks C.J. Spiller is going to be the guy. The thing about C.J. Spiller is you never know about his durability. He also has Antonio Brown and Anquan Bolden of the 49ers. Up next, we've got, I love this because these guys are always changing their team names. We've got John Moore's Downingtown Destroyers taking on Mike Bond's East Falls Jedi. Now, Mike's just changed the location of his Jedi, but I think 3 years in the league, it's been in 3 different cities, so it's an expansion team every year. So, and then, of course, with John, you don't know whether he wants to play off whether he's never made the playoffs or whatever. But I tell you what, John's got a good team this year, and so does Mike Bond. This is Colin Kaepernick versus Matt Ryan, quarterbacks in the NFC Championship game last year. LaShawn McCoy versus Ray Rice. Alfred Morris, Darren Sproles. You've got T.Y. Hilton, Demaryius Thomas. Big names in this one a lot, but one name that I really do like is T.Y. Hilton. In fact, I think T.Y. Hilton is going to be a fantastic player this year. Excellent job drafting him, John. He was somebody that I had targeted, somebody that you got just before I was about to take him. I think this kid is special, and I think pairing him up with that young quarterback and Andrew Luck out there in Indianapolis is going to be something special for years to come. I could be wrong. Could be something totally. He could break his leg because he is on your team. That's the thing I hate about the fact that you took Colin Kaepernick. You know that? Because everybody you draft gets hurt. Why did you have to take him? Up next, we've got Jeffrey Hezekiah Golden Bombs, Hamilton Square Possum taking on Matt Dreyfus's off in the corner. You got great quarterbacks in this one, very mobile quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Cam Newton. Matt took Cam Newton very high. I think Cam Newton could pay off and be one of the highest scoring quarterbacks in fantasy football this year. As of right now, though, Matt, you still have Andre Brown. You're the Giants' backup running back in your starting rotation. I'm sure you'll remove him by then, but he's still there, and he is out for at least 8 weeks. Where, Jeff, you have the muscle hamster and Doug Martin. You have Stephen Ridley. Love those two backs. And I also love Cordarrelle Patterson, your rookie wide receiver that you took out of Minnesota. If Christian Ponder can figure out a way of how to throw the football, I think that kid is something special. And in the last matchup of the first week of Turnpike to Turnpike 2013, we have Kenny Long's The Gladiators taking on Bobby Crane's Julius Jones. Interestingly enough, this is another team name that constantly changes with the Gladiators. Bob's always stays the same. It's always Julius Jones. Problem is, he's never had Julio Jones. So I don't understand where the name came from, why he chose it, but that's Bob, and I can't figure him out. But I will tell you about this matchup because it's got the 2 marquee #1 quarterbacks in both fantasy football and the NFL, and Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. I love both of them. I think I like Drew Brees a little bit more this year, only because of the amount of weapons he's got. I think he's a little more to play with now that Greg Jennings is out of Green Bay. Aaron might not have quite as many. Bobby also has David Wilson, somebody who shot up the draft boards when Andre Brown got hurt. I love David Wilson. I think he's going to be great. Then, of course, you've got Kenny with Adrian Peterson. So that's the first week's matchups. Let's get through this first week. Let's see where everything starts to separate. Let's see how many members of the long contingent can get off the schneid and get going. Let's see if Anthony Parisi can make all of us shut up about his team. And let's see if my defending Warriors of Babylon could get off to a 1-0 start. I don't know. I like my chances. But until then, I'm League Commissioner and defending League Champion Kevin Babula. Bye!